Well, what has become a pretty strong push or claim from the coalition around the Prime Minister not being briefed at all, or being briefed at least 9 days after Chris Minns. This is over the foiled caravan terror plot in Sydney. Joining the panel now is Deputy Nationals Leader Perrin Davey. Thanks for your time. The accusation put today by Peter Dutton that the Prime Minister wasn't told because he could leak it. No evidence presented. That's a pretty extraordinary claim to make.
I think what it boils down to is what is the other reason? Like, what other reason could there be for the Prime Minister's office not to be briefed on such a major security risk? So Peter Dutton's saying, what else could there be? Is that the reason? It would be nice if someone would come forward and clarify. It would be nice if the Prime Minister would come forward and clarify and just give us the timeline of events. So, you know, I was told on this date, this is the briefings that occurred, and these are the steps we've taken to try and ensure Australians are safe.
I mean, there could be umpteen reasons, whether authorities thought it necessitated him being briefed, whether someone thought he was and he wasn't. To say the only thing that could have happened is the Prime Minister of the country who's going to leak it. I think without evidence, it's quite the claim to make, isn't it? And
this is vacuums create their own sort of observations. And if the Prime Minister could easily put all of this to bed just by answering...
So you wouldn't need an inquiry if he put it to bed, or you'd still need an inquiry?
No, well, I think if the Prime Minister answered the questions, it might avoid the need for an inquiry.
There you go. Well, the government says why divert resources from the AFP for an inquiry at this point? What do you say to that?
Well, I say, OK, if you don't want to divert resources by holding an inquiry, answer the questions. Just answer the simple questions.
Do you think the Prime Minister can't be told about national security issues because he's a leak risk?
I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but I would like to know when the Prime Minister was told and what actions then ensued. We don't need to know what was in the briefing. You know, the Prime Minister keeps saying security matters, operational concerns. We're not asking about that detail. We want to know when he was told and then what steps were put in place to ensure Australians
So if the police
safe.
are somehow not telling him because he's a leak risk, that's a mistake from the police?
It's also a big... If it is the case, it is an absolute testament on the feelings about the Prime Minister's office.
But you've yourself just said that's going too far to suggest he's some sort of leak risk.
Well, I would like to know why. If he was not told for 9 days, why was he not told for 9 days? That would be a very interesting question to have answered.
Can I ask you on a separate matter? Today, one of your colleagues in the Senate, Holly Hughes, got up and said that she thought it was convenient timing for Anthony Albanese to skip Parliament to go to the floods. Is that a bit of a cheap shot today? There's plenty of people in Queensland who are clearly struggling after what we've seen, a huge event that's not over yet.
Oh, look, absolutely. And like, I'm Shadow Emergency Management Minister. I have been in regular contact with the Emergency Management Minister, Senator Jenny McAllister. My office and her office are speaking daily, making sure that we're briefed and we're across it. My personal thoughts about when events like this happen is the local MPs absolutely get involved because it's their community. The Emergency Management Minister's gone up. I think the higher profile of us could potentially wait until a bit later to let the emergency be dealt with and not be a distraction. However, the Prime Minister chose to go up today. That is well within his remit. I'm not going to have a go at the Prime Minister for going up and hearing from people on the ground. People up there are hurting and they need all the support they can get, and we won't stand in the way of getting support out the door to where it's needed.
OK, so we've got from, just to return to this while we have it, we've heard from the AFP, I think the Deputy Commissioner, speaking about this briefing issue we've been alluding to. Let's have a look.
We determine, based on a number of factors, when it is appropriate to do those briefings. Again, I'll reiterate, we are privy to information that others external to the JCTT are not. And we have very experienced, very mature investigators and senior decision makers that operate within that construct that will decide when it is appropriate to brief and why it is appropriate to brief. I said to you, it's hard to describe that in a general sense because it needs to be done on a case-by-case basis.
So it's up to us, they're saying. What do you make of that? It's our call.
I think that's a very interesting take on it. I mean, I understand there are always operational sensitivities. And what we're asking for from the opposition, of the Prime Minister is not to divulge any of those operational sensitivities. And indeed, in the briefings, we don't want to know what was in the briefing. We just want to know when he was briefed. Chris Minns has told the public when he was briefed. We can't understand why the Prime Minister is dancing around and refusing to divulge.
But are you surprised? I mean, look, there's more of this hearing. Maybe more will come out. And maybe I'm a bit early even asking this. But are you surprised that the federal police are kind of being so broad about it, not just saying, not just coming out almost in the opening statement and saying, here's the situation, we briefed the Prime Minister January 28. Can you think of any reasons why they might conduct themselves that way in this hearing?
It is quite bamboozling as to why no one is prepared to say, well, we briefed him on this date. And it does mean you ask, well, were they not briefing him because it was a leak risk, or did they not brief him because they forgot in the heat of the moment?
They're not briefing because there are so many operational matters underway all the time, and that they don't always escalate everything to the Prime Minister's desk. Is there a chance that that's what happened?
That's exactly what happened.
That they believe it wasn't
in terms of the view within that agency, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But I would say that's a wrong call.
If you're the Prime Minister, you'd be annoyed, but there are so many operational matters right now, and some of them more serious, apparently.
Yeah.
So
many
more imminent is the
many operational matters, and there are. I mean, we've got an increase in anti-Semitic attacks right across the board, and a lot of investigations going on. But we are talking about a caravan laden with enough explosives for a 40-metre radius blast zone. That is a very significant thing that I would think deserves the fastest escalation.
All right. Perrin Davey, always appreciate your time. Thank you.